Welcome to Monday. It's August 4th, 2025. Your Day Weather podcast brought to you by the Advocates Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, don't face it alone. Get an experienced local Wyoming attorney on your side. Free consultations at wyomingadvocates.com or call 307-800-1952. You deserve an advocate. As we go into a new week and a new month, things are going to be a little bit different. We have a bit of a pattern change coming. But at first, we've got to talk about the hailstorm that hit the Cheyenne area on Friday. As you can see there, an incredible shot from Jan Curtis of the mesocyclone and the thunderstorm as a supercell came together. We'll talk about that. We've got a shifting high pressure ridge. It's shifting way to the west, basically really squeezing out and shutting off a good supply of moisture from the south. We're just not going to have the moisture available this week that we've seen over the last several weeks. So this is going to mean less thunderstorm activity, lower humidity as we go through the next 5 days here. But we have a cold front coming, an August cold front that's going to be pushing in this weekend into early next week. So while it is going to get warmer, pretty warm, over the next 5 or 6 days, by the weekend and early next week, it cools right back off again, which has been the trend this summer. The trend this summer is to have some hot weather, but have it not really last very long, interrupted by these fronts. So let's do a little bit of a replay. Let's go back to where we were on Friday. So the next few slides I'm going to show you are the slides we posted on Friday's podcast. This was the storm prediction forecast for severe weather on Friday. And you can see the yellow areas highlighting the highest risk of severe weather. And it did include southeastern Wyoming, western Nebraska there into western South Dakota in the yellow shading. And we showed you this slide too of the hail risk. Now this is always really important to point out. When we show you graphics, when we show you contours, where we show you where there's a risk, keep in mind you should never ever look at these verbatim. You want to use trend as your friend here. So if you're close to these areas, or let's say you're just outside of that yellow line, it doesn't mean it's a given that you're not going to get severe weather. But if you're close, you always have to pay attention. And this is something else to point out. And this is something I've seen many, many times, especially when it comes to large hail, big hail on the high plains. It's when you get the interface between the much drier air and the deep monsoonal moisture, because the drier air is entrained into the thunderstorms up high, causing a colder environment, which makes it easier for the hail to get bigger. And then right on the interface of the deep moisture, the thunderstorms have the right ingredients to become big. And on Friday, we had a situation where everything came together for that and a supercell formed. And you can really see that. What you want to pay attention to on this radar loop here is the structure and how it came together slowly northwest of Cheyenne and then built. And then you can see a hook-like structure right there. See right here where the thunderstorm became organized and began rotating. Now, a lot of folks commented is like, well, I didn't see the tornado. There was a tornado warning. Well, this thunderstorm was rotating. It was a supercell. It had every opportunity to produce a tornado, and I think it almost did. We were very fortunate it didn't, because you can see the hook would have gone through a large portion of the populated areas there. So yes, it was a very, very costly hailstorm, but it could have been worse if everything came together. And this is why we had the warnings. We had a mesocyclone forming. We had a rotating cloud. You could see the rotation in the clouds. It was very evident on radar. And Jan Curtis grabbed a great video, a time lapse here, and you can see the rotation of this storm if you look very closely at the clouds and see why there was a lot of concern there that there could have been a tornado. You can really see the circulation, and then you can see the rain and the hail shafts forming as it came on through and developed. It was a situation that could have been a lot worse, but I know you've got a lot of broken windshields and a lot of damage, and I'm one of those. I lived right in the middle where that thunderstorm came on through. Now, Jan put together a great YouTube video that really highlights the whole thing. You can find it at that address, or just find Jan on YouTube and take a look at a lot more video on how that storm came together. Then afterwards, as it cleared out, well, you got some pretty photos. Now, I got a lot of photos that came in, and I can't show them all. So I just kind of made a mirage here, a combination of all the hail photos that I got in from the storm. And you can see they were doozies. So if you sent a photo in, I'll get to it. Just have too many to show you this morning from that hailstorm. A beautiful shot there from Rosette, Wyoming, from a thunderstorm yesterday and a beautiful rainbow. And we are starting now getting into that isolated thunderstorm pattern where we're going to keep thunderstorms in the forecast, but they're going to be isolated in nature. And there you can see that from Glendo yesterday and over Togety Pass this weekend. Beautiful sunset there in Douglas, Wyoming over the weekend. And a beautiful shot there south of Laramie on Saturday from some heavy thunderstorms that developed Saturday afternoon and evening on the tail end of the monsoonal moisture. And boy, here is a satellite photo that really tells the story very, very well. We talked about the shifting high pressure ridge to the west and how that was going to push a big dry air mass into the area and cut off the monsoon. Look at that. Choom. The monsoon is not going to be able to penetrate this, as the clockwise circulation around the high is going to keep it stymied. So what we're going to see is low humidity here and much, much less in the way of thunderstorms. Not to say that there could be some isolated thunderstorms, there might be, but we're going to see the thunderstorms on the edges where the subtropical moisture is more deep. That's where the thunderstorms are going to form. And there you can see the high pressure ridge as of today is going to be in southeastern Arizona. So that's going to suppress the monsoonal moisture flow. By Thursday, there's a slight eastward shift to the high. So that opens the door a little bit. It's just not going to be deep monsoonal moisture, but some will trickle back in to Arizona and the southwestern United States at the end of the week. While we will see this Pacific trough keep thunderstorm activity active in the northern plains and the northern Rockies. Wet weather along the east, and the east, which suffered through that hot, humid weather, is going to see relief from the heat, but not the humidity. And then as we take a look at temperatures over the next 5 days, you can see the coolness in the east, the coolness in the Pacific Northwest, but you can see it is going to warm up. In a lot of the Southwest, the Rockies, and the Northern Plains, it is going to be a bit warmer than average. So we've got some hot August weather this week, nothing record-breaking, it's just going to be August hot. And with the decrease in the coverage of that subtropical moisture, there'll be less clouds, so there'll be more sun. That's going to allow it to get warmer. And if we step through the thunderstorm forecast here over the next few days, you can see the moisture is going to be around the ring of where the subtropical moisture is. But notice how it's much thinner in terms of east-west, more widespread up here into Montana, parts of the Pacific Northwest and southern Canada, and then you can see the suppression of the monsoonal moisture down here in Mexico, keeping it down there. So this is today. This is Tuesday. So you can see the northern plains will still have some action, northeastern areas of Wyoming as well. More isolated thunderstorms in eastern Colorado down into the panhandles. Then we start to see that moisture get pushed up on Wednesday, a little bit more. So on Wednesday, there'll be a little bit more thunderstorm activity here. We're starting to see thunderstorms reemerge in Arizona and New Mexico and southwest Colorado. As that next little plume comes up from the south, that's where we're going to be on Thursday. So it's not nearly like what we've been showing you over the last few weeks, as the deeper subtropical moisture really gets cut off and only comes back on a little bit of a trickle here during the second half of the week. Now going forward into the weekend, geez, look at this. We've got a trough and a cold front arriving Saturday. We'll see if the magnitude of this front is as big as the European model here is showing, but we've got a ridge here in the Eastern Pacific. So if we've got a ridge here in the Eastern Pacific, you're going to allow the jet stream to dip into the Western United States. And so a lot of times this is pattern recognition. A lot of weather forecasting is understanding and recognizing the pattern, looking for patterns. So when a high pressure ridge develops in the Eastern Pacific, the jet stream is naturally going to take a dip. So we're going to see what happens here, but we could have a pretty healthy cold front for the second full weekend of August, as we go into the next upcoming weekend. There'll be a pretty good frontal boundary. Now, there may not be a lot of precipitation with it, but it is going to cool things off if it comes in that strong. And then it's going to send the heat back into the Corn Belt in the Midwest as cooler air comes in out of Canada. And I think this is how August is going to go, kind of a back and forth between the high pressure in the south and the southwestern United States, and occasionally these cold fronts trying to push in off the Pacific. And that's going to keep us kind of an up and down temperature pattern and kind of an up and down pattern as well when it comes to thunderstorm activity. But for the first time in a while, the monsoonal moisture will not be eliminated, but will be suppressed here for the next few days. Have yourself a great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.